Welcome to Season 1 of the Resilient Dad Show. I'm your host, Pat Di Domenico. When I became a single dad and was faced with navigating social parenting issues and the complexity of the family legal system, I felt confused and I felt like I had nowhere to turn. That's why I created the Resilient Dad Show, a place that I so badly needed and wish had been available for me during the grueling and challenging times of working through my own experience. This show will feature industry experts in mental health, social services, and personal development, along with resilient dad role models whose stories of overcoming the challenges of co-parenting will create a new vision for the life you and your kids deserve. If you have any questions or want to suggest a future guest on the show, please visit resilientdad.fm for more information.
Welcome to this inaugural episode of the Resilient Dad Podcast. My name is Chris Decker, and I'm your honorary guest host for today's episode. We're going to get to know a little bit more about Pat, who's going to be taking you on this journey of the Resilient Dad Podcast. Pat, welcome to your show.
Thanks, Chris. And thank you very much for being the interviewer today for today's episode.
Absolutely. I've had the great pleasure of getting to know you and your story and the reason why you're starting this podcast. It's a very powerful message for dads everywhere. And I'm wondering if you could share a little bit more about what this podcast is about and why you're launching it.
Yes. So this podcast is going to be about supporting, fathers, dads who are dealing with the challenges of co-parenting after separation, and just a resource where they can have the ability to feel supported, have in terms of listen to experts in the industry, such as in regards to mental health or social services, and even other resilient dad role models. Who'll be able to show them a vision of what's possible after in terms of separation, to have that life that they want, and that the journey's up to them.
Yeah, the journey really is up to them. And as a father myself, I really connect with the material that you're going to be covering in this show. What's a little bit of the why behind it? Like why launch this, and what's a little bit of your story here?
Yeah, so the big part is that I was a child in terms of in a broken home where my parents separated twice by the time I was at age 13. And then finally I actually re-manifested the one thing that I didn't want for my kids was to be in the same situation. And with my first child, unfortunately the story repeated itself. And that's a big part of what, in terms of what's brought me to this experience and journey of understanding a bit more about what it's like as a child, but also as a dad. And my aim is that in terms of I'm able to use my experience and knowledge that I've had to be able to help dads through the journey. Because I've in the last 6 months I've heard some really sad news on the news, which isn't something you commonly hear. There was 2 events that really rocked me to my core. There was both a mother and a father, 2 separate occasions where obviously they were in dire straits, and in terms of I couldn't even possibly think of what their mental state was at the time. But they must have believed that at the time that the best thing was to not only take their lives, but also that it wasn't safe for their kids to be here, and they end up taking the lives of their kids. And it's so easy to judge, especially in this space. And the ones that suffer are the kids, regardless of what either or parent has, in terms of co-created. And my aim is to be, a defender for the kids and an advocate for dads.
To be an advocate for dads. Now, I see the tagline underneath your logo says, "Find the answers within." What does that mean as it pertains to the Resilient Dad podcast? How do you find the answers within?
it's being able to actually analyze the situation from the inside out, as in terms of what potentially could have caused this situation, and understanding what our own part of the the journey, or what's created this separation, and not necessarily looking to blame others, and to, in terms of being in that state of anger and rage, and being able to look within in terms of what are some things that potentially have caused you to create these patterns? What are the behavior conditioning that's been created in your life? Potentially, a lot of people that I speak to that are in this situation have been in this situation as a child, and who knows what they've seen. And subconsciously, we're conditioned as kids, and being able to step back and reflect and have a look and see what are the parts that, in terms of maybe within me, that I need to be able to look at, to not only deal with, and be in the best mindset to be able to have a amicable co-parenting relationship, but also to have a vision of in terms of a better life and learning from lessons.
So what kinds of questions are you going to ask your guests? What kind of information, what is really driving your curiosity in this whole project?
Yeah. So I guess the kind of questions are like, in terms of, we all have a story, and it's being able to understand what could possibly have been the creation of those stories. What are some behavior patterns that are generally found? Because I believe that, in terms of, regardless on what form, in terms of we manifest these situations or actions, they generally can come from a place of, whether it's a place of scarcity, in terms of being, not wanting to be vulnerable, being, to have the need of certainty in our life, and even maybe perfection, which just creates a whole mess. And being able to see what these industry experts are able to share with us, in terms of to give us some insights of what are some common themes that are found, and things that they believe have been able to help people in the past to overcome these challenges. So to me, it's really sort of, I guess, scratching a bit more my own itch of understanding that, well, other people have been able to overcome their challenges. So, so why not me, or why not other people? And it doesn't have to be as hard as we make it. So it's like a, flick of a light switch. If we want, we can focus on, in terms of the solution and not the problem, and just trial, I guess, what's worked for others.
Now, what do we need to do in order to focus on the solution and not the problem? Because I think that's a really powerful point.
Yeah. One of the biggest things is self-reflection, and being able to see that, in terms of the areas that we can improve, being able to be able to be, I guess, compassionate, and be able to, I just view things from other people's perspective, and trying to understand what the other person's feeling, and in terms of, I guess, even communicating. Like, probably one of the biggest skills that, in terms of, I've learned that I wasn't really doing, was listening. Always, instead of focusing on a response, in terms of an argument, how do I, in terms of win the situation or the discussion, but instead of just coming from a place of trying to understand the other person and trying to come to a better solution, other than looking for a winner. Because especially in this space, there are no winners. There's just losers. And unfortunately, the ones that suffer the most, as I said before, are the kids.
Yeah. The kids in this situation, why are we doing this? Providing that legacy to our children, stopping these toxic patterns that we've been brought up in, and choosing a different way moving forward. I'm excited to hear from these guest experts in mental health, social services, to have great role models of resilient dads and to be able to get some information, to be able to get some inspiration, to be able to get some motivation to help me become a better father. Because I want to break some of these patterns that I was brought up in as well. And
yeah.
I think one thing that you had shared with me is just the overwhelming statistic of how many fathers in Australia are taking their own lives because this is just too much to handle. Co-parenting, being separated, navigating the court system, the financial aspect, the legal aspect, just the emotional, heart-wrenching activities that happen that like sometimes is too much to handle alone. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. And it's, I think, one of the greatest pains that anyone will experience when it comes to the pain of losing that connection of their child, you know, a child that they co-created. And I don't think any parent should be, removed of there in terms of their ability to have a meaningful relationship with their child, regardless of what's happened in terms of the relationship between the parents. The statistic, there's many arguments in terms of what's real, what's not. They say that there's 3 dads a day. There's a campaign for 21 fathers. So they say that there's 21 fathers a week that take their lives in regards to, when it comes in regards to family disputes. But I think regardless of the number, whether it's 1, 3, 10, 50 mothers or fathers, I think one's too many. And to be able to, I recently had a discussion with a police officer, and he was saying like Christmas time and birthdays in particular, there's a massive influx with parents that can't go into hospitals because of what they're experiencing, that they've been not allowed access to their kids. So in terms of regardless of what anyone wants to argue with statistics or anything like that, the fact is that in terms of there should be no parents in this situation taking their lives, because regardless, kids need both parents, both mothers and fathers. Mothers in regards to nurturing and caring and showing them in terms of love, and there's a massive role that fathers play that is completely different to mothers. And with the lack of absence of, in terms of with father, certain things evolve for kids, and then later there's bigger issues in the future.
Well, you're involved with several organizations that are combating this exact thing. Could you tell us a little bit more about some of the organizations that you're going to partner with?
Yeah, so one in particular that I've had some dealings with, and even had some support myself, it's called ABF, Australian Brotherhood of Fathers, and the founder there, Leith, is he's a father himself that's been on this journey, and the heart and in terms of the passion and the desire to help fathers through their experience is a much needed mission that unfortunately is not really discussed. Sometimes men struggle to feel that they can be open and vulnerable, to completely tell their experiences or what's happening. I definitely take my hat off to guys like Leith who have started organisations in Australia. And, I think the more, common in terms of knowledge and exposure, and where dads feel more comfortable to come out and seek help, and in terms of look at not only the issue at hand, but also the future, and in terms of even if they don't currently have access to their kids, well, what can they build for themselves to have a meaningful life, but also becoming the role models that their kids deserve.
Becoming the role models that their kids deserve, becoming resilient dads, finding the answers within. Pat, this has been an amazing first episode, painting a picture of what's to come. For everyone that's listening, the best thing that you can do is to subscribe to this podcast and come along for the journey. If anything resonated with you, please leave a review. Let us know your feedback. Share some more information with us that will help us make better content moving forward, because after all, this show is for you. Pat, do you have any closing words before we end today's episode?
My closing words is that your past does not determine your future. And where focus goes, energy flows. So we're in complete control of ourselves, and that's the only thing we have control of. So let's in terms of make the most of our situation and live positive lives that everyone deserves. Hey guys, I really appreciate you listening to today's show. It means a lot to me that you're part of the journey and mission to help single fathers be the best dads possible. I'd really appreciate it if you review the show and share it with someone you generally believe could benefit from the content. Please visit resilientdad.com for more content and resources as we build this community for dads everywhere.